when you close your eyes and, picture the world's most powerful, life-sustaining, just utterly complex ecosystem, you are almost certainly picturing the Amazon rainforest. And specifically that vast sort of mythical heart of the Brazilian section. It's a place that really demands respect. And honestly, planning a trip there can feel, well, overwhelming.
Oh, completely. It can feel like trying to map an entire continent before you even think about packing.
Right.
The sheer scale, the mystique, it often completely obscures the logistical reality for first-time visitors. It's really not just a standard vacation. It's more like an expedition.
Yeah.
And it requires meticulous, really front-loaded preparation.
That's exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. Our mission is to cut through all that complexity. We're using the most current sources we could find. 2025 planning guides, lodge breakdowns, the essential health protocol.
Non-negotiables.
Exactly. We want to give you the essential high-impact, low-stress guide to planning a trip deep into Amazonas state. Think of this as your instant shortcut, Get you completely well-informed before you even start looking at flight prices.
Yeah, and our dive into these sources, it confirms that the Brazilian Amazon offers just these unmatched experiences. Biodiversity, incredible river life, profound cultural encounters, too.
But there's a catch.
There's always a catch, isn't there? The sources are unanimous. Your success, your enjoyment, it depends entirely on preparation.
Okay.
Especially the logistics, understanding the seasonality, and the absolute necessity of health precautions.
Okay.
If you prioritize those three areas and really nail them, the rewards, the unique experiences, they're just immense.
Okay, let's unpack this. First things first, we need to establish where this whole adventure actually begins. Because you can't just, drop into the middle of the rainforest. Where is the base camp? The logistical gateway.
Right. You pretty much always start and end in Manaus. For the Brazilian Amazon, especially Amazonas state, it's the unavoidable primary hub for logistics.
Okay.
If you look at a map, Manaus sits right there, strategically, at the meeting point of the Rio Negro and the Solimões rivers. Big rivers.
The meeting of waters, right.
Exactly, and that's why it offers this huge range of reputable lodge options, cruise options, all radiating out from that central point. If you're flying in, whether internationally or domestically, that Manaus airport, that's your required destination.
So Manaus gives you the infrastructure you need, the hotels, flights, supply chains, all that.
Yeah.
But the sources, they're pretty quick to point out.
Yeah.
If you want the real experience, you need to get out of the city, like immediately.
Right.
Onto the water.
Precisely. And right away, you hit this crucial trade-off. How remote do you want to be versus how much travel time are you willing to put in?
Oh, okay.
If you're looking for those truly remote lodges, maybe 6-8 hours upriver, sure, you might find less boat traffic. That could potentially improve the sort of wildlife ambiance.
That's appealing.
It does, but those really remote options, they come at a cost. Lengthy transfers, sometimes complex, sometimes quite expensive transfers. So the vast majority of trips, the ones that are well-rated and offer good value, they tend to opt for that dense cluster of quality lodges situated let's say, reasonable distance from Manaus.
And reasonable means.
Typically involves a shorter drive first, maybe an hour or so, followed by a boat ride, maybe 1 to 3 hours. Much more manageable.
Okay, that makes sense. And this leads us right to another key decision point.
Yeah.
Choosing between one of these multi-night lodge packages versus trying to do it yourself with, say, a day tour from Manaus.
Right.
I know those day tours exist, but the sources we look at, they were really emphatic that those tours are basically missing the point. Why this strong insistence on staying a minimum of 3 nights, ideally even longer?
Well, it comes down to experience depth and sheer value. They both increase exponentially with multi-night stays. The sweet spot, according to pretty much every operator and traveler review, seems to be somewhere between 3 and 6 days minimum.
3 to 6 days.
Yeah, and here's why. These lodges around Manaus, they deliver a really strong bundled value proposition. They cover your guaranteed round-trip transfers from Manaus.
So no haggling for boats.
Exactly. All your meals, what we call full board, and all your essential guided excursions are included. You basically don't have to worry about finding reliable transport or decent food once you're out there, deep in the jungle.
Okay, I get the bundle value part. That's clear. But let's talk about the biological reason why the length of stay matters so much. If I'm short on time, maybe I only have 48 hours, why can't I just cram all the activities in?
You can try, but you'll dramatically, and I mean dramatically, reduce your chances of meaningful wildlife sightings.
Why's that?
It's tied strictly to the biology, the rhythm of the Amazon.
Yeah.
Wildlife spotting is all about the low light hours dawn, just before sunrise, dusk, and then nighttime.
Yeah.
During that intense midday heat, the forest just goes quiet. Animals rest, they find shelter, they conserve energy. If you're only doing a quick DIY day tour, you're almost exclusively seeing the Amazon during that quiet, hot midday window.
Right when nothing's really happening.
Pretty much. Multi-night packages, though, they let you fully capitalize on those crucial sunrise canoe trips, the sunset outings, and importantly, the specialized overnight options.
Like what?
Like night spotlighting for caimans, or maybe even observing nocturnal mammals if you're lucky. A short stay just compresses everything and guarantees you miss the absolute best viewing times.
So you're basically buying access to the prime wildlife hours, not just a bed for the night.
That's a great way to put it. You're buying access.
Okay, makes total sense.
Yeah.
So let's talk brass tacks then, cost. If we're aiming for that mid-range, which usually seems to offer the best balance of comfort, value, guiding quality, what do these bundled packages typically look like for, say, 2025?
The pricing structure is actually remarkably consistent across the reputable, ethically run places near Manaus. For 2025, typical mid-range packages seem to run roughly $550 up to maybe $1,300 plus per person.
Okay.
And that range, that variance, depends almost entirely on the comfort level you want, the guide-to-guest ratio, and of course the duration of your stay.
That's quite a wide range, though, $550 to over $1,300. If I see two packages, both listed as 4 days, 3 nights, how do I figure out why one costs so much more than the other? What am I actually paying the extra for?
Good question. That difference often dictates the level of, let's say, immersion and, frankly, luxury. Let's break it down a bit. A standard sort of representative lodge might show rates starting around $565 per person for a 4-day, 3-night stay. That's probably in a standard double room.
Okay, basic.
Right. That package typically includes basic cabins, probably fan-cooled. The meals will be good, but maybe simple. And the excursions might be done in slightly larger groups with more of a generalist guide.
And the higher end, the $1,370 package for, say, 6 days, 5 nights in a bungalow.
Okay, so if you jump up to that level, you're paying for several key upgrades. First, almost certainly air conditioning, which, trust me, in the Amazon heat and humidity, many people consider that less a luxury and more essential for a decent night's rest.
I can imagine.
Second, you're getting higher quality, maybe more specialized accommodations, perhaps reliable hot water, private balconies, that sort of thing.
So it's mostly about comfort. Or is there an experiential difference, too, that justifies paying double or more per day?
Oh, absolutely. Experientially, that extra cost often buys you exclusivity and specialization. The, say, $1,300-ish package often includes much smaller guide-to-guest ratios. Sometimes you might even get a private guide just for your party. Plus, access to higher quality equipment, think quieter electric motors for the canoes, which makes a big difference for sneaking up on wildlife, reduces noise pollution.
That makes sense. Less disruption.
Exactly. And beyond that, the highest tier packages usually involve more specialized culinary preparation.
Yeah.
They're better at handling complex dietary needs, and sometimes, importantly, they have a demonstrated commitment to sustainability certifications.
Training.
Meaning more of your money goes directly towards conservation efforts and supporting the local communities. So it's comfort, exclusivity, specialized guiding, and potentially a more sustainable footprint.
Okay, that really clarifies the value insight. It's not just about counting the days or checking the room type listed online.
Correct. When you're comparing packages, you absolutely have to look beyond the price tag and the room category. Ask, is the guiding specialized? What's the group size for excursions? And critically analyze the included transfers.
How so?
Well, a budget package might look cheap, but if it spends half a day just getting you to a subpar lodge, that cuts right into your precious wildlife viewing time. Whereas a quality package ensures those transfers are seamless, efficient, maximizing your time actually out on the water or in the forest, which, let's face it, is the whole point of the trip.
Right.
That investment in efficient logistics and better guiding, it translates directly into better sightings and a better overall experience.
So paying a bit more to guarantee you maximize those crucial dawn and dusk hours and to get that specialized guiding, it's clearly the smarter move if you're genuinely serious about seeing the wildlife and understanding the ecosystem.
Precisely. It's about value per experience, not just cost per night.
Okay, so now we know where to aim for Manaus as the hub and how to book, focusing on those multi-night packages for real value. Now we need to tackle when to go. Because the Amazon isn't static, right? It doesn't just have a simple wet or dry season like some places.
No.
It seems to have two completely viable yet dramatically different experiences based entirely on the water level changes. And here's where it gets really interesting.
This is arguably the single most important decision you make after you've picked your lodge, or at least the type of lodge experience you want. You are essentially trading off two entirely different sets of potential activities and sensory experiences.
Okay.
Whether you book during the high water season or the low water season fundamentally changes your access points to the forest and the river, and therefore it really impacts your wildlife viewing potential.
All right, let's break it down. Let's start with the dry season, or maybe better called the low water season. The sources typically put this somewhere between June and November, roughly. What are the conditions like then, and what's the main advantage of going during this period?
Okay, so conditions during the low water season, generally hotter, sometimes intensely hot, especially later in the season.
Right.
The key upside, though, is logistical ease for trekking. As the water recedes, it exposes huge sections of land. It opens up forest trails that were completely flooded just months before. So if your priority is trekking deep into the jungle, focusing on spotting large mammal tracks, learning about medicinal plants from your guide, really getting that dryland hiking experience, this is definitely the time to go.
And does the lower water level benefit wildlife sightings too? I read something about that.
Yes, it often does. When the rivers and tributaries drop, the aquatic life fish, caiman, and also the terrestrial mammals that rely on the water, they tend to concentrate near the remaining shrinking waterways.
Makes sense. They have fewer places to go.
Exactly. This concentration effect can dramatically increase the density of sightings along the riverbanks and the newly exposed beaches. You might see more capybara lounging, more caimans visible, maybe even tapirs coming down to drink more predictably. It increases your odds.
Any other perks to low water?
Well, you might find a marginal reduction in biting insects during the absolute height of the dry season, though honestly, you should always be prepared for insects in the Amazon, regardless of season. Don't count on that too much.
Okay, fair enough. But you mentioned potential downsides too. There are serious caveats, right? Particularly late in the dry season, maybe October, November, December, especially if it's been a particularly dry year.
Yes, that is the critical planning detail people need to be aware of. Extended dry spells, typically from October through December, can cause rivers to drop unusually low, way below average.
And the problem with that is,
If water levels fall too far, it can severely limit boat access in certain smaller channels and tributaries. These are often the very routes the lodges use for their daily excursions to get deeper into the ecosystem.
okay, so your activities could actually be restricted.
Absolutely. It might affect your ability to reach specific, maybe prime fishing spots or distant corners of the lodge's reserve. So travelers who are specifically targeting that late dry period, maybe October, November, they must confirm the current water level situation with their specific lodge operator before booking, or at least manage their expectations. Excessively low water can sometimes even restrict the types of boats that can operate safely.
Good to know. So low water, generally great for hiking, potentially concentrates wildlife near water, but carries a risk of restricted boat access late in the season.
Got it.
Now let's flip the switch. The high water season, generally running from, say, January through May.
Right. And the high water season is just visually and sensorially fascinating. The water level in the Amazon basin can rise dramatically, sometimes 40 or even 50 feet in certain areas compared to the low water mark. It's incredible. This is the season that uniquely, exclusively, favors canoeing deep into the flooded forests. The Brazilians call them Igapó, the permanently black water flooded forests, and Várzea, the seasonally whitewater flooded forests. This is where you gain unparalleled silent access.
Okay, paint a picture for me. What does that Igapó experience actually feel like for someone who's never imagined paddling through a forest?
It's truly surreal. You are literally paddling your canoe among the tree canopies. The water level rises far above the normal forest floor, often completely submerging the hiking trails you might have used in the dry season, transforming them into these silent, narrow canals through the trees.
Amazing.
It's incredibly immersive, a very unique perspective. The entire forest ecosystem seems to kind of shift upwards into the mid-story of the trees. You might see fruit-eating fish swimming right where a monkey was standing just a few before. It's usually very quiet, almost like being in a natural cathedral. It's an experience the low water season simply cannot offer.
That sounds incredible. But that amazing canoe access must come with a direct trade-off, right? An unavoidable limitation regarding the trekking we talked about.
It absolutely does. It's the fundamental trade-off. While you gain this unbelievable access to the flooded forest interiors via canoe, you almost completely lose access to the established ground trails. High water limits hiking access considerably simply because many of those traditional jungle paths are underwater.
Or just too muddy.
Exactly. Or the exposed ground is so saturated and muddy that it becomes impassable or even unsafe. So, if your primary goal is to spend, say, 4 hours trekking deep into the jungle on foot, high water season is definitely the wrong choice for you.
Okay, that's crystal clear. Now, thinking about planning and budget,
hmm
if I'm trying to find a sweet spot, maybe a blend of decent accessibility and potentially better value, where do the sources suggest I might aim my booking, timing-wise?
Well, it's true that many travelers instinctively target July through December specifically because they prioritize that trekking access and the perceived concentration of wildlife near the water. Those tend to be peak months. Okay. However, to try and balance accessibility and maybe find slightly better pricing, the sources strongly suggest considering the shoulder months.
Meaning?
Specifically, maybe late May or June, as the water is just starting to drop significantly, or perhaps November, maybe early December, as the dry season is ending, but before the heavy rains fully kick in.
And the benefit there.
You often secure decent conditions, maybe even a bit of a mix of both worlds, some canoeing still possible, some trails starting to open up, and you might avoid the absolute peak season pricing you often find in July and August. It's worth investigating.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you had to boil down this whole seasonal choice, the most crucial decision point here, what is the absolute core trade-off the listener needs to lock into their mind?
The core trade-off is fundamentally binary. You need to ask yourself, do I prioritize easy dryland hiking access, which absolutely requires the low water season, or do I prioritize that unique, unparalleled ability to canoe silently deep into the flooded forest, which absolutely requires the high water season?
You can't really have both perfectly.
Not really, no. You must align your expectations and, critically, the activities offered by your chosen lodge with the realities of the season you book. Don't book a trip in February dreaming of long, dry jungle hikes, because the trails will likely be underwater. And conversely, don't book in October hoping for extensive Igapo canoeing unless you've specifically confirmed that particular year had unusually high water levels persisting late, which is rare. Match your desire to the season.
All right, planning the logistics like transfers and packages and nailing the timing based on water levels, that's one massive part of the puzzle. But health and safety preparation for an Amazon trip, that's totally non-negotiable.
Absolutely non-negotiable. And let's be clear up front. This is the section where you must consult a professional travel clinic or your doctor. What we're providing here, based on the sources, is the vital starting checklist, the things that dictate your planning timeline.
Okay, let's start with the big one, the critical requirement that often has a strict deadline. Yellow fever.
Yes. Yellow fever vaccination is strongly recommended and, honestly, often treated as effectively required for any travel into Amazonas state and the surrounding areas within Brazil.
Required how?
Well, proof of vaccination, that official yellow card, it might be requested upon entry into Brazil depending on your origin country and current regulations. And importantly, many lodges will ask to see proof for their own liability and the safety of other guests and staff.
Okay, so get the shot. But the key detail is the timing, right? This isn't something you do the week before you fly.
Definitely not. The vaccine needs time to actually stimulate your immune system and develop protective antibodies. The official guidance generally suggests getting the vaccination a minimum of 10 days before arrival in the risk area for it to be considered effective.
10 days minimum. That's a hard deadline. It dictates your whole prep schedule, really.
Yeah.
Pushes that first travel health consultation much earlier than people might think.
Exactly. You need the shot, and you need that official document, the International Certificate of Vaccination or Prophylaxis, the ICVP. That's the formal name for the yellow card that proves you've had it. Don't lose it.
Okay, yellow fever, sorted, get it early. But while yellow fever grabs the headlines because of the certificate, the sources emphasize that the ongoing year-round risk of malaria in Amazonas state requires even more day-to-day vigilance. It needs a dedicated two-pronged approach.
That's right. And this is absolutely not a risk to take lightly. Malaria is serious.
So prong number one is bite avoidance. Sounds basic, but doing it effectively in the jungle probably requires real discipline.
It requires extreme discipline day in and day out. It means maximizing physical barriers, wearing long sleeves, long trousers, especially during those peak mosquito activity hours,
Which are?
dawn and dusk. Just like the best wildlife viewing times, unfortunately. That's when the Anopheles mosquitoes that transmit malaria are most active.
And repellent.
Absolutely essential. The sources consistently specify using formulations containing high concentrations of either DT, usually 25% to 50%, or the alternative, picaridin. Apply it thoroughly to exposed skin.
Any other practical tips for avoiding bites?
Yes, actually. A helpful one is clothing color. Mosquitoes seem to be more attracted to dark colors.
Really?
Yeah, dark colors absorb more heat, which might be part of it. So the advice is to wear light-colored clothing. Think khakis, light greens, beiges. They might help make you slightly less attractive target. Every little bit helps.
Okay, light colors, long sleeves, good repellent. That's the mechanical prevention, the front line. But for many itineraries, especially if you're going deep into a jungle lodge for 3, 4, 5 nights or more, that might not be enough on its own.
For most people on those kinds of trips, no, it's not considered sufficient. That brings us to the second prong, chemoprophylaxis. Preventative anti-malarial medication. For many travelers heading into a high-risk region like Amazonas, taking anti-malarial medication isn't just a suggestion. It's usually required clinical advice based on the risk assessment.
And what are the common options for those medications?
The main choices usually discussed are Atovaquone which is often sold under the brand name Melarone,
Okay.
doxycycline, which is an antibiotic that also works against malaria, or mefloquine, sometimes known as Lariam.
And this is where that conversation with the travel doctor becomes absolutely crucial and highly individualized, right? You can't just borrow pills from a friend or take what you took on a different trip.
Absolutely not. Please don't do that. This decision is entirely personalized. It depends completely on your specific itinerary and risk profile. Are you staying mostly near Manaus, or are you doing a deep jungle trek for a week? Do you have any underlying health conditions that might interact with the drugs?
And side effects too, right?
Exactly. What are the potential side effects of each medication for you? For instance, doxycycline can make your skin much more sensitive to the sun, which is a factor in the tropics. Mefloquine has potential neurological side effects for some people. Your doctor or a travel clinic specialist will weigh all these factors with you.
And they'll also tell you exactly when to start taking them. Because it's not just when you arrive, is it?
Correct. Critically, they will instruct you on the precise regimen, when to start the medication, often days or even weeks before departure, how to take it during the trip, and importantly, for how long you need to continue taking it after you leave the risk area. You cannot skip this personalized consultation. It's vital.
This really underscores the need for a comprehensive travel health strategy, planned well in advance. It's not just about getting a single shot.
Not at all. And even with the best preparation during the trip, there's a critical practical tip for the post-trip phase that everyone needs to remember. Any fever you develop after returning home from the Amazon warrants immediate medical assessment, specifically checking for malaria. Don't just assume it's the flu.
Even months later.
Yes. The disease has an extremely long and variable incubation period. While most malaria cases present fairly quickly within weeks or a month, some forms, particularly Plasmodium vivax, can remain dormant in the liver and cause symptoms up to a year, sometimes even longer, after the initial infection.
Wow, a year.
So it is absolutely essential to tell your doctor immediately, I traveled to the Amazon rainforest in Brazil. Even if the fever occurs many months after you get back home, that travel history is crucial for diagnosis.
Okay, so let's recap the health essentials. Yellow fever shot at least 10 days out, plus the certificate. Disciplined bite avoidance, long, light-colored clothing, strong repellent. Personalized anti-malarial medication decided with the doctor and taken correctly before, during, and after. And finally, post-trip vigilance for any fever for up to a year. Phew. Anything else for the general health kit the sources highlight?
Well, beyond the required or strongly recommended vaccinations like yellow fever, you should definitely discuss hepatitis A and typhoid with your travel clinic, as those are often recommended for travel in the region due to food and water sources.
Okay.
And if you're planning to go particularly remote, maybe beyond the standard Manaus-adjacent lodges we've been discussing, you really should have standby care plans for minor emergencies.
Meaning a good first aid kit.
A comprehensive first aid kit, including things like anti-diarrheal medication, strong pain relievers, good blister treatment, especially for potentially wet feet, hydrocortisone cream for inevitable insect bites and rashes, antiseptic wipes, bandages. And critically, make sure you have a full supply of any personal prescription medications you take regularly. Refills in the Amazon are basically impossible to get.
Good point. Pack more than you think you'll need.
Definitely. And the absolute final word on health. Always check the latest national travel health advisories, like from the CDC in the US or similar bodies elsewhere, right before you actually book your trip, and maybe even again just before you leave.
Why the double check?
Because guidance gets updated regularly. Recommendations can change based on current outbreaks, vaccine availability, or new information about risks in specific regions. What's advised in March might be slightly different by October. Stay current.
Okay, we've done the hard yards, planned the logistics, figured out the timing, budgeted the cost, taken our shots, packed our pills. The planning mountain is climbed. Now, let's talk about the payoff. What does a typical 3 to 6 day experience inside one of these mid-range jungle lodges actually look and feel like on the ground?
Right, the fun part. Well, the daily schedule is usually pretty rich, and it's very intentionally designed around the environment's natural rhythm. The whole point is to maximize your chances for encounters during those low-light, peak wildlife activity hours we talked about earlier.
So, expect early mornings.
Definitely expect early mornings, and sometimes late nights too. The sources confirm that days are generally highly structured to make the most of the time. It's not really a sleep until 10 a.m. kind of vacation.
Walk us through a typical day's activity timeline. What are the sort of core standard excursions most packages include?
Okay, a typical day often begins pre-dawn. You'll likely have those sunrise canoe outings. These often focus on bird watching toucans, macaws, kingfishers, and also spotting the unique pink river dolphins, the bodos, which are a major highlight for many visitors. Sometimes you'll look for giant water lilies too, the Victoria amazonica.
Cool. What happens as the sun gets higher and hotter?
As the heat builds, activities usually transition to guided jungle walks. Here, the guides, who are often incredibly knowledgeable local experts, sometimes from nearby river communities, they focus on explaining the local flora, pointing out fascinating medicinal plants, talking about the general ecology of the rainforest. They'll teach you how to identify animal tracks, maybe spot well-camouflaged insects or frogs.
So education mixed with exploration.
Exactly. Then, as the sun starts to dip again, the activity picks back up for the evening.
What happens then?
The dusk hours are often targeted for specific mammals that might be emerging, or for fishing. Piranha fishing is a very standard inclusion in most packages.
Do you actually eat them?
Sometimes. It's often more about the experience, the novelty of catching one, but yes, frequently they are cleaned and served up as part of dinner, maybe grilled or fried. They're quite bony, but tasty.
Okay. And after dark?
After dark, the star attraction is usually the night spotlighting for caimans. This excursion is typically done by canoe, in complete silence and almost total darkness, apart from the guide's powerful spotlight sweeping the riverbanks.
Sounds kind of thrilling.
It really is. You glide silently through the black water, and the guide is searching for that distinct red or orange reflection of the caiman's eyes just above the water surface. It creates a very unique, slightly spooky, but definitely memorable atmosphere.
Now, the sources also mentioned an optional, more immersive experience, something about an overnight hammock camp. Tell us a bit more about that.
Ah, yes, the jungle overnight. This is definitely for the more adventurous traveler, and it's often cited as the absolute highlight of the entire trip for those who do it. Many lodges offer this as an optional add-on, spending one night camping deep in the forest with a specialized survival guide.
Camping how? Tents.
Usually not tents. Typically, you're sleeping in a hammock strung between two trees protected by a mosquito net under a simple tarp shelter in case of rain. You help prepare a simple meal over a campfire. The focus is on total immersion in the sounds and sensations of the jungle at night.
Wow. Sounds intense.
It is. It provides this unparalleled sense of isolation in a good way and immersion. You hear every rustle, every call. It gives you a much deeper appreciation of the ecosystem's nocturnal life compared to sleeping back in a comfortable cabin. If you're up for it, it's highly recommended.
Okay, good to know that option exists. Shifting back to logistics for a second. That bundled transfer package from Manaus must make arriving at the lodge so much simpler, right? Avoiding the stress of trying to hire independent boats or taxis.
Oh, it simplifies everything enormously, provided your flights align properly with the lodge's schedule.
What do you mean?
Well, because you're relying on river transport from a certain port near Manaus out to the lodge check-ins and check-outs are tightly aligned with fixed boat departure schedules. They might only have 1 or 2 boat runs per day.
Okay.
And this is where a really great practical tip comes in. Travelers absolutely should verify the exact airport pickup windows or the boat departure times from Manus and check how they align with their flight arrival and departure times before booking flights.
Why is that verification so critical? What happens if they don't line up?
If you arrive on a flight that gets in too late for the last scheduled boat transfer of the day, or conversely, if your flight leaves very late and you arrive back in Manus from the lodge early in the morning with hours to kill, you might be forced into booking an extra, unexpected hotel night in Manaus at either end.
Which adds cost and hassle.
Exactly. It can potentially defeat some of the cost savings and convenience of the bundled logistics. So, call the lodge or your tour operator ahead of time, confirm those transfer schedules, and see if adjusting your flight time by maybe just an hour or two could save you the need for that extra city hotel stay. Plan the connections carefully.
Smart tip. Okay, let's talk about the inevitable. Packing for this kind of unique environment. Beyond the basic clothes, what are the absolute non-negotiables people need to bring?
The environment is defined by two things year-round: relentless heat and high humidity. That dictates your wardrobe choices completely. Number one, quick, dry, moisture-wicking fabrics are essential.
Forget cotton.
Forget heavy denim and cotton. They just soak up sweat and humidity, feel heavy, and can take literally days to dry out in the jungle air. You want lightweight synthetics or specific tropical weight wools that breathe and dry fast. Layers are good too.
Any other clothing tips?
Yes, consider treating your outer layer clothing. Maybe your hiking shirts and trousers with permethrin insecticide before you leave home. It's an effective way to get an extra layer of protection against ticks and mosquitoes right in the fabric itself. It lasts through several washes.
Okay. What about footwear? What do you actually wear on your feet for jungle walks?
Closed-toe shoes are an absolute must for any jungle walks. Protects your feet from insects, thorns, sharp objects. Now, many lodges actually provide tall rubber boots, sometimes called wellies.
Should you use them?
Yes, you absolutely should accept and use the lodge's boots for wet or muddy trails. They protect against moisture, deep mud, and offer some protection against snakes or other critters. But you should also bring your own personal, well-broken-in hiking shoes or trail runners for drier trails, or just for wearing around the lodge grounds for comfort. Don't rely only on the rubber boots.
Got it. Anything else essential for the day pack?
Definitely, a light rain shell or poncho tropical downpours can happen suddenly any time of year. A powerful headlamp, not just your phone's tiny light, is crucial for night activities and navigating around the lodge after dark. And absolutely critical, dry bags or waterproof sacks. For any sensitive camera gear, your phone, passport, extra batteries, binoculars. The humidity alone can be brutal on electronics, let alone rain or splashes from the canoe. Protect your gear religiously.
Good advice. And a quick note on money. I'm guessing these lodges aren't exactly wired for credit cards or digital payments.
Generally, no. You absolutely need to bring physical, local currency, Brazilian reais, in cash. Primarily, you'll need it for tipping your guides and the lodge staff at the end of your stay. Tips are customary and greatly appreciated.
And maybe for souvenirs.
Exactly. And for any local crafts you might want to purchase during visits to nearby riverine communities, which are often part of the itinerary, many of the lodges lack reliable ATMs, and their internet connectivity for processing credit cards can be limited, slow, or non-existent, often relying on satellite links. So plan ahead and get enough cash before you leave the relative infrastructure of Manaus.
Don't get caught short. Okay, last point on the lodge experience, the midday strategy. You mentioned the intense heat. How does a smart traveler deal with that Amazonian heat and humidity to avoid just being completely wiped out by lunchtime?
Yeah, that midday period, roughly from maybe 11 a.m. to 2 or 3 p.m., can be fiercely hot and humid. The number one recommendation is hydration. Drink way more water than you think you need, constantly. And number two is to embrace the siesta culture, essentially. Plan for midday rest.
Just chill out.
Pretty much. It's simply too hot for really effective, energetic movement during those peak sun hours. And as we noted, wildlife activity naturally dips then anyway. So use that time strategically. Rehydrate, maybe read a book in a hammock, socialize with other guests, perhaps attend one of the educational lectures on ecology or local culture that some lodges offer.
Conserve energy for when it matters.
Exactly. Managing your energy wisely ensures you're fresh, alert, and ready to go for the much more productive dusk and night outings, rather than suffering from heat exhaustion just when the real action starts happening again. Pacing yourself is key. Okay, so if we try to synthesize everything we've covered, the logistics of Manaus, the value of packages, the critical cost factors, the huge importance of seasonal timing, and all the health prep, the key choice really does keep coming back to that fundamental seasonal trade-off.
High water versus low water.
Right. We have to reiterate the caution from the sources. You absolutely must select a lodge and a season that are suited to the activities you most want to do. Remember, low water restricts some boat access in smaller channels, but opens up hiking, while high water limits hiking severely, but unlocks that incredible flooded forest canoeing.
You need to be honest about your priorities.
Exactly. Your success and satisfaction hinge entirely on aligning your expectations with the realities of the ecosystem during your chosen dates. Are you primarily there for deep jungle trekking or for silent deep water canoeing? Pick the season that supports your main goal.
And the sources also drew a really clear line in the sand between those cheap, often rushed day tours from Manus and the genuine quality you get from committing to a multi-night lodge stay.
Oh, absolutely. It was a consistent theme. The cheaper day tours, they often seem to prioritize just checking the box, a hurried photo op with maybe a captive animal, a very brief, superficial community visit. They're often focused on hitting easily accessible spots close to the city,
Lacking depth.
completely lacking depth. The multi-night programs, by contrast, even the standard mid-range ones, offer much richer wildlife encounters simply because you're there for the prime viewing hours. They offer deeper guided immersion because the guides have time to take you further, explain more, and they allow for more meaningful cultural context, perhaps spending quality time visiting riverine communities away from the main tourist drag. That longer commitment just pays off hugely in genuine experiential richness.
Okay, so let's bring it all together. What does this all mean for someone listening? We've talked about a likely minimum price range starting around $550, but going up significantly, a minimum time commitment of 3 to 6 days being ideal, and these really strict health protocols,
Yeah.
including that 10-day vaccine deadline. It's a significant undertaking. Is the Brazilian Amazon ultimately worth all that effort and investment?
Based on the sources, the answer is an unequivocal yes, but with a condition. The Brazilian Amazon is absolutely worth the investment for a specific type of traveler, the nature-first traveler. Someone who is genuinely willing to invest that minimum time, 3 to 6 days, and who is absolutely committed to following the strict, personalized health protocols we outlined. It's an investment, yes, but the return is access to unparalleled biodiversity.
And it feels like that combination of factors, the specialized sunrise and dusk wildlife viewing you only get on longer stays, the immersion in that unique river life, the guaranteed professional guided access that comes with the packages, it justifies those mid-range costs we discussed. It's definitely not a budget beach holiday,
Not even close.
but it delivers these rare, truly high-impact experiences, things that can fundamentally change your perspective on the natural world, I imagine.
That's exactly the sense you get from the reports. So the final verdict seems clear. If you pair the right season for your interests, whether that's low water for trekking or high water for that Igapo access, with a reputable, decent quality lodge, and you do the proper early health preparation, the result is an almost unmatched experience to cost ratio for adventurous mid-range travelers. It's a solid investment in an experience you genuinely cannot replicate anywhere else on Earth. So, just to wrap up, remember the key takeaway: the success of your Amazon adventure really hinges on that upfront commitment. A commitment to understanding the logistics, a commitment to timing your trip correctly based on the all-important water level, and maybe most importantly, that serious commitment to your health, getting the yellow fever shot well ahead of that 10-day deadline, sorting out your personalized anti-malarial plan with a doctor way in advance. Preparation is everything.
And actually, that commitment to timing, to choosing your season, raises one last fascinating, maybe provocative thought for you, the listener, to consider as you start finalizing your own plans. We know these lodge excursions often include really valuable visits to local riverine communities, people whose entire daily routines, their fishing, their travel, their agriculture, it's all completely dictated by the specific water levels throughout the year.
It shapes their whole lives.
So think about this. How does choosing a season based primarily on your recreational preference, say you want better hiking access in low water versus wanting better canoeing access in high water, how does that choice fundamentally alter the type of encounter you have, not just with the wildlife, but with the people who call the Amazon home year-round? Does low water, which creates those exposed river beaches, maybe allowing for easier landings, offer a more casual, perhaps more grounded interaction?
There's high water.
Right. Or does high water, which might force more of a canoe-to-canoe or canoe-to-stilt-house encounter, create a more intimate, maybe fleeting, but entirely different kind of connection? It really raises that subtle question of accessibility versus true immersion and how our travel choices impact not just what we see, but how we connect with the place and its people.
That's a really interesting angle.
Sure.
Definitely something to mull over as you start your planning.
Keep digging into new knowledge, everyone, and we'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.